Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Ellie. Today I'm going to be doing my June reading wrap up. So this month I've read 20 books, which I honestly was not expecting. I did go on holiday this month, so that is partly why I managed to read quite so much, but it felt like a very slow month, and at first I thought it was probably going to be my lowest reading month, but it ended up being one of the best. So this isn't another really long wrap up. I'll get straight into it. The first book I read was Bricks by Brooke O'Brien. I rated this 3.75 stars. This is a rock star romance between Bricks and Ivy. So Ivy comes home for the summer and she finds out that her mum has gotten remarried and Bricks is her new stepbrother. Now, I didn't know this was like a stepbrother romance when I first went into it, but they had a bit of history and the way they looked at it was like they got together first. There's a lot of tension between them at first as they are thrown together to live in the same house, and yeah, I liked it. I just wish I'd known that it was step siblings going into this. Then I read It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. I know I'm very late to reading this one. I read Hook, Line and Sinker last year and I didn't really enjoy Hook, Line and Sinker, but I liked this one a lot more. Gave this 4 out of 5 stars. This is about Piper and Brendan. Piper is this party girl influencer in LA, and after a mishap she is sent to her late father's hometown. Her and her sister renovate an old bar which I believed it belonged to her father, and then Brendan is a grumpy fisherman who begrudgingly helps her out. As I wasn't a fan of Hook, Line and Sinker, I was a bit dubious going into this as to whether I would like Piper as a character, as Hannah was the more laid back sister and usually I tend to like the more laid back characters, but I actually preferred Piper, which did shock me, but I'm glad because I did really like this one. Then I read Stirred by Charity Ferrell. This one I ended up absolutely loving. I'm looking at my laptop because I write down all of my reviews and this is the one book I've not actually written anything for, but so I do know what happens, but I cannot remember the character's name, so I do apologise. But we have these two characters. So our heroine, she works in the hospital and our hero brings his son in, and it turns out that the son is actually the heroine's nephew. She doesn't know about him and has known about him, but after what happened between her sister and the hero, he kind of took his son away from the family as he blamed them all for what happened. This is the first time she is meeting her nephew and she kind of begs him to give her a chance to get to know him. She won't tell him that she is related to his mum, she just wants to know him as a friend. So he has built up a lot of walls, but he does let them down. He lets her kind of come in and babysit and introduces her as a friend. It is really sweet. A lot of this is about building up the relationship between her and her nephew and him trying to kind of take those walls down and stop letting what his ex did ruin the future that he could have. I just thought it was really sweet. It was a great single dad romance and I loved it. I'm pretty sure I either gave it like a 4 or a 5 stars. Then whilst I was on holiday I also read Every Summer After by Kylie Fortune. I gave this 5 stars. I absolutely loved this. This is the story of Percy and Sam. Percy at the start of the book, I think she's about 12 or 13, and her family buy a lake house which they go to every summer. So this story is told from a present day perspective, but also going back through all of the summers leading up to why they no longer talk, and she has to return back to town for Sam's mother's funeral. There is a lot of different dual timelines in here because it has all of the different summers and the present day, which I thought might have been a bit confusing, but it actually flowed really well. I read this whilst I was sat on the beach and I just felt like it was the perfect summery kind of read. I really loved it, and again this is another one that I was nervous going into because I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it, and it's been really hyped up, but I think it's definitely worth the hype, so if you haven't read it already I'd pick it up. Then I read Uncoupling by Lorraine Brown. I believe this is also published as the Paris Connection, but it's the exact same book. This one I rated 3.75 stars. We follow Hannah. So she's on the train to Amsterdam with her boyfriend as it is his sister's wedding. So they're traveling there together and she gets up during the night on the train and moves into another carriage and the train ends up splitting. So he heads on to Amsterdam and her train is stopped in Paris. On the train, she meets another passenger who's in the same situation, and she blames him for her being stuck and split up from her boyfriend. They find another train for them both to get on, but they have a day to spend in Paris. And Leo, as an apology, says, let me show you around my country, my city, let me show you all the great places. And she's very dubious at first, but she thinks, I'm going to live my life a little, and she does it. So they get on the back of a moped, and he takes her around Paris. He takes her to his favourite restaurants and to meet her friends, and she just gets a bit of a different outlook, and she starts to wonder if the life she's living is really the one she wants. I did find the ending of this a little bit cringy, but overall it was fun. When I got back off holiday, the first book I picked up was A Court of Frost on Starlight by Sarah J Maas. I read 3 of these books last month, and I thought I would take a bit of a break so I didn't get myself into a slump with them, and this one is nice and short. And then I'm going to read the final book next month in July. There's not really much to talk about without giving away anything that's happened in any of the other books, but it's all centered around the winter solstice. I thought it was cute. I don't know if it was necessarily needed as a book, but when I get to the next one I might see why this was such a short little thing slipped in. Nothing big to happen in this one, and I gave it 3 stars. Then I read a YA book. I've not been reading a lot of YA recently, but a few of the writing projects I'm currently working on are based around YA, so I have wanted to go back and read a little bit more into that genre just so I can get a better idea of it, because I've not read it for so long. But I picked up My Mechanical Romance, and sorry, I'm gonna have to look at the screen as I say this because I'm probably going to say the author's name wrong, but it's by Alexine Farrell Formouth, and this author also writes as Olivia Blake. But this is a YA romance between Teo and Belle. Belle has just moved to this new school, and she is asked to join the robotics team, where she gets friendly with Teo, who is the captain, finds a new passion for something that she didn't think she would be very good at, and yeah, it was sweet, it was okay. I gave it 3 stars. Then, as recommended by Shannon, I read In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lucas. This is one of her favourite books. It's between this and Twin Crowns. And she read this also this month, and she immediately gave me a copy to read because she loved it so much. So Shannon, if you're watching this, thank you. This is a male-male romance between Athlin and Prince Tao. So Athlin is a mermaid and Tao is on a royal tour. He has just turned 16, I believe it was, and he's doing this tour of the kingdom, and whilst he's doing this tour he meets Athlin. They first meet as Athlin is captured by the boat which Tao is on, but Athlin manages to escape and he finds his way back quite a lot throughout this book. It was really, really sweet. I don't think I've read many, if not any, male-male romances, so this was a nice introduction to that. Yeah, Shannon, thank you for recommending this to me. I love it, and I do want to try it more by this author, and look how pretty the cover is. Then I read Booked on a Feeling by J.C. Lee. I gave this 3 stars. I feel like the middle of the month was all kind of average read for me after having such a great start. But this is a friends to lovers romance where our heroine returns to this small town where her best friend lives, and he has had a crush on her for ages, and he's like, right, we have 6 weeks together, I have to try and show her that I am worth it, and if nothing comes from this then I'm just going to try and get over my feelings for her. So she's staying in an Airbnb above a bookstore, which she then decides to help the owner with renovating it and just making it a bit nicer to try and draw people in to help with her business, and he helps them along with this as well, and it does have a really gorgeous cover as well. So then this one took me quite a while to get through. I think I started reading this on the 1st and it took me about 2 weeks. That is Manacled by Senlin Yu. I think that's how you say it. I know a lot of people said they've sat and read this in days, and I feel like I don't want this to be like controversial because I can see why people love this book, but I went into it thinking that I was going to absolutely love it because I have always been a huge Harry Potter fan. Draco Malfoy is one of my all-time favourite Harry Potter characters. The only thing going into it was that I am not a fan of Hermione, and I never have been, but I was really open-minded going into this because I was like, so many people love it. I honestly probably should have DNF'd it, but I just kept getting to points, and then I was seeing reviews and people were saying just keep going. At the points I was at those times, writing on Goodreads like, do I continue? And I will say it did pick up for me when we got to the flashbacks, but I didn't realise quite how dark it was going to be, so maybe that's on my part. But yeah, I didn't love it as much as everyone else does. I was thinking I can't see how Draco redeems himself from what was happening, and I don't really know. I'm glad I read it. because I've been wanting to read it for a while, but I don't think it was really for me. So then I moved on and read Temptation by Jenna Hartley. This is on Kindle Unlimited, or at least it was at the time that I read it. This is a ex's dad's romance. We follow Kendall and Knox in this story. So Kendall, her mother is receiving treatment and she is struggling with the bill, so she takes a job with this agency to be a house sitter. She's told that the guy is never going to be home. She's literally just got to sit and look after his house as it's in the stages of being like built and remodeled, so she just has to be there to open the door to contractors, take parcels, things like that. So she takes it, makes herself at home, unbeknown that her ex's dad, Knox, is the one who is moving into this house, and he liked her the whole time that she was with his son, but obviously she's younger than him, she was dating his son, so he never said anything. But as they are in this house together, it kind of brings up his old feelings for him, and she starts to see him differently, and this was very spicy. There was a lot of spicy scenes in this, and it obviously has them sneaking around from his son. But then, yeah, I really liked it. I think I preferred this over Birthday Girl, which is another book with a similar kind of storyline where it's the ex's dad and they're having to live together. So yeah, I would say I preferred this over Birthday Girl. So if you've read that and not this, definitely pick this one up. Then I read The Right Swipe by Alicia Ray. In this one we follow Rhiannon, who has her own dating app which she set up. She previously worked for a different dating app and something happened with the owner or manager of that, so she branched out and made her own version. So there's this other dating website called Matchmaker, and one of the owners passed away, so all of the other little dating apps around there are trying to buy this original Matchmaker one to expand their own apps with. And Rhiannon is obviously one of these people who is trying to buy Matchmaker. So she goes to an event, and Matchmaker's new spokesperson is someone who she had a bit of a fling with, and he ghosted her. There is a reason why he ghosted her, and he tries to explain this to her, but she won't listen. As he is the spokesperson for the brand she is trying to buy, they have to work together, and he agrees to help her to prove that she is the one that the company should sell to. It was sweet. I think it was a bit longer than it probably needed to be, but I did like it, and it was a 3.75 stars. Then I read another book on Kindle Unlimited, and that was Mafia Mistress by Mia Finelli. This is an age gap mafia romance. We have Francesca. She has dreams of going off to college and not really being involved in the mafia life of her family, but her dad has messed up, and to pay a debt he tells her that she is going to move to Italy and marry a member of the Italian mafia. She's not happy with this, but obviously she doesn't have a choice, and she moves over there. Things end up happening between her and her supposed fiance's dad. I actually really like this a lot more than I thought it was going to. I know this is a really well loved mafia romance, and this does end on a cliffhanger, which I didn't know, so I think in July I'm gonna have to get to the next book. The heroine in this is really likable. I do find sometimes with mafia romances I don't always like the heroines in them, but in this one I did. Then I read The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This book completely surprised me. I absolutely love this. I think I rated it a 5 stars. In this we follow Florence, who is a ghostwriter for a romance author, but after going through a breakup of her own, she's just finding it really hard to write romance as she doesn't believe in love anymore. When her father passes away, she goes back to her hometown to help out with the funeral and the family, and her family actually run and own a funeral home. So it's very much within her family, and her father have always been able to see ghosts, and a lot of people haven't believed that and looked at her funny for it. So as she's got older, it's not something she's ever really told to people, and she's just kept it to herself. So at the start of the book she meets a guy in the publishing office, and then when she moves to her hometown she opens the front door and he is there because he has died. Follows her around in this hometown. He pops up and he kind of helps her out with things, and I just thought it was really sweet. I just wasn't expecting to love this as much as I did, because I was thinking, how can it be a romance when we have one character who's a ghost and one character who's alive? But it all does work out in the end, and yeah, I just absolutely loved it. Then I read Luna Wolf by G. Bailey and Reagan Rosewood. I gave this 4 stars. This is a wolf shifter romance. We follow Nyx, and they have this ceremony when, I believe it's when they're 18, and everyone that's turned that age has to pick a mate. So the male wolves pick a female wolf, and if you aren't picked, then you are kicked out from the pack. You're rejected, and she goes to the ceremony and she notices there's an even number, so she's like, this is fine, I'm gonna be picked either way. And then the one who was left that would pick her said that he wasn't going to take part because he would be better off as a healer, so they give him this kind of exemption from having to take part, which means she is then rejected from the pack. Her sister tells her that there is this school, if she leaves and finds it, they will let her in, which she does. And this school, all of the rejected mates learn to harness dark magic, which they then, once they graduate, I assume, they go out into the world and help protect the wolf packs which rejected them. All of the incoming wolves are given a tutor who Nyx does not get on with hers, and they end up fake dating because he wants to get another one of the wolves there off his back. And yeah, I don't like the fake dating trope. I know I've said that a lot on here, but it worked in this one and I liked it. There's also part of the series and I'm probably definitely going to continue with it. I finally read Twisted Lies by Anna Huang, so I now have finally finished the Twisted series and I regret putting it off for so long. I loved every single book in the series. I think Christian, our hero in this, is my favourite out of all of them. All of these books can be read as a standalone, but I would recommend reading them in order as the couples pop up throughout them. But in this one we follow Stella and Christian. Stella is an influencer and she's living in Christian's building. He is a millionaire, billionaire with a bit of a secret. Stella has a stalker who resurfaces, and to keep her safe he tells her to move into his apartment so that he can always keep an eye on her and she can always have someone following her so that nothing comes out from having this stalker. This also had fake dating in it, but I liked it in this book. So they fake date because she, as I said, she is an influencer and she isn't gaining any more followers and she's stuck at the same number and she's trying to win a contract with a brand that she really likes. So he agrees to fake date her to try and grow up her following so she can get this deal with this brand. I just absolutely loved this. Again, I was scared going into it because it's such a junky romance book, but I didn't feel it was too long. So now I've finished the Twisted series, I can say they are definitely worth the hype, and I think Anna Huang is one of my new favourite authors. Then I read The Secrets of Us by Lucinda Berry. This is on Kindle Unlimited, but it's also free on Audible as well. So I listened to it and also read it at the same time. But this book, I've read a few books by Lucinda Berry before. They are thrillers and I don't really tend to read thrillers, but I read The Perfect Child by her in 2019 I think it was, and loved it. So every so often I go back and read one of her books, and I'm trying to diversify what I am reading, try and read into some different genres. So I'm going to try and pick up some more of these kinds of books every so often. It's not a favourite genre of mine, but when I read them I do enjoy them. Anyway, in this one we follow two sisters, Nicole and Crystal. They are both fostered by this lady called Mrs. Wheeler, who also has a daughter called Veronica. So they've grown up as foster sisters and they are treated differently because Mrs. Wheeler and her husband had struggled to conceive. Eventually they did get their daughter in Veronica. So Nicole and Crystal kind of grew up as a two. They always tried to include Veronica, but she never really wanted anything to do with them. She didn't like them. This is again a dual timeline POV, so it's from back when they were 17 and to the current day. So in the current day, Crystal is now a lawyer and Nicole is in a psychiatric ward, as Crystal has just had a phone call to say Crystal has tried to burn her house down with her husband inside and is now facing a murder charge. So we have Crystal continuously visiting Nicole in the hospital to try and work out what happened, to try and get her sister out of this murder charge, because she can't ever see why her sister would suddenly decide to murder her husband. But you find out that they are actually hiding a pretty big secret from when they were 17 that they have covered up and tried to keep in their past, but it does come back up again. I was really gripped by this. Like I said, it's not the usual book that I do tend to read, but I do like with them because with romances you can kind of guess where they're going, but with this book and other thrillers it is more of a mystery and you think it's going to go one way and it twists the other way, and I gave it 5 stars. Then I read Savage Fae by Caroline Peckham and Susan Valenti. I've already read this with Shannon. It's book 2 in the Ruthless Boys of the Zodiac series. I can't really say too much about this one because it would give away things that happened in the first book as well, but essentially in the story we have Elise, who goes to Aurora Academy to try and find out what happened to her brother as he was murdered, and her 4 suspects are the 4 kings of the school. So she gets in close with them and ends up liking some of them more than she probably should. This book I was a bit bored with, to be honest, but I definitely picked up towards the end, and the way this ended, I'm so excited for book 3. I think I definitely prefer the Zodiac Academy series over the Ruthless Boy series, but yeah, I need to pick up the next book so I can continue. Then I read my second thriller of the month, which is completely unlike me, and that was Sweetwater by Cara Reinhard. This book has been on my shelves for 4 years maybe, and as I don't really tend to read thrillers, it was just sitting there, and I've been wanting to get through what I have. So in this one we follow Sarah. She is living this pretty perfect life with her college sweetheart who she ended up marrying, but she gets a call in the middle of the night from her son Finn, and she goes to find him alongside her husband and finds him injured in the woods beside his girlfriend's dead body. So they leave his girlfriend where she is, they get Finn away, and it turns out that her husband's family are pretty good at covering up. Everyone in the towns are in their pockets, so they quickly try and hide any blame or anything that could possibly lead people to thinking their son Finn is behind it away, so that he is completely in the clear. And she starts to realize actually her husband isn't all what he seems, and the family aren't all what they seem, and this might not be the first thing that they have attempted to cover up. This is also another dual timeline, as we have Sarah younger with a boy that she had a thing with who lived in the house. I feel like what I'm saying is like not a bit rambled, but it's all coming back to me. But her and her husband in the present day are living in this house, and there's a flashback scene of her husband gifting her the house. This house is a house that she knew when she was growing up, as she had a thing with the boy who was living in there, and living back in this house brings up all these memories of this guy. But yeah, this probably isn't making much sense, but I really like this. Again, this is also on Kindle Unlimited and Audible as well included, so I was reading it but I was also listening to parts as well. Again, I really liked it. It's not my usual genre, but I'd recommend it. Then the final book of the month is the last day of the month today, and I have a little bit to go, so I haven't really finished it, but it will be my last book of June, and that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I was planning on doing a reading vlog of me reading this, but I don't want to say I'm not enjoying it, because I am. I picked this up because of the hype. It got to me, it was all over TikTok, everyone was doing reading vlogs and reviews of it, so I wanted to try it for myself, and I like it. I'm just not loving it. I don't really get the hype yet. I'm just kind of waiting for like this big thing to happen, and I have still got a little bit of a way to go, so I am hoping that something is going to click as to why everyone loves this so much. I am struggling with kind of the world and how all the quadrants work at times, but I do like all of the characters in it, and I can see why people really like Zayden. That's how you say his name. But yeah, it's not living up to the hype for me at the moment, but as I said, I've not 100% finished it, so that might change. But yeah, the reading vlog just hasn't happened because I've not been enthralled with it, and it's been taking me a while to get through. People have been saying they've read this in like a day or 2 days, and I've been on this for 5-6 days and I've still not finished it, which is unlike me. Yeah, I haven't rated this one yet. At the minute I would say maybe like a 3.75, but I'm hoping I can get up to a 4 by the time I finish. So they are all of the books which I read this month. As I said, it ended up being a lot more books than I anticipated. I have decided, I think the next video that you see will be me talking about it a bit more, but I'm going to change my book buying and reading habits. I'm going to try and read a lot more books which I already own and not buy so many. So I'm not a TBR reader, but I do already have a bit of a TBR going on in my mind is what I want to get to next month to start reading through my shelves. That's the goal for July anyway. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you again next week.